Hey there, men. Mike Yarbrough, Wolf and Iron here. I thought I'd do a little chat today about Roseanne. I mean, of all things, I could tell you that I had no idea that I was going to be talking about. Roseanne is certainly one of those. But the show's come back on, apparently. I didn't see it when it first came out. Didn't even know there was going to be a reboot of it. But there are a couple of things on there that I thought would be appropriate to talk about as men. And especially since the show kicked off to 18.5 million viewers, I think, which is just ridiculous. I mean, I don't know if this is any kind of comparison. I mean, I'll be happy when the Wolf and Iron podcast hits 50,000 downloads a month. So, and a good podcast or any kind of YouTube channel that gets 50,000, or I mean, a million views a month is considered to be doing really well. So 18.5 million people tuned in to watch Roseanne just for the first, episode or two. And so that's just crazy. And there were some things on the show that made me want to go watch it. I watched about an episode and a half. I didn't get through the second half of it because it was just getting to be stupid, and I kind of could see where it was going. But there are a couple of things I want to talk about. And, one of those is some things I didn't pick up on the show before when I was a kid watching this in the 90s. And then also the, I don't know what you call it, not transgender kid, not gay kid, but basically the grandson on the show that is dressing in female fashion and stuff like that, and just that whole situation and how the family addresses it. So a couple of things. I don't know, I guess I wanted to watch it not only because of the hype around it. That doesn't usually get me, but I didn't know it was out. And so when I heard about Roseanne, I was like, oh, this is sort of like a nostalgic thing. What I remember of Roseanne as a kid was that they were just this blue-collar, sarcastic family that were fairly dysfunctional, as a common theme in the 90s. But they were funny to watch, right? And for the most part, they loved each other and kind of got through whatever problems that they had. Fast forward 20 some odd years later, and the dysfunction of the family hasn't changed, but it's become more apparent to me as an adult. Stuff I didn't pick up on when I was a kid, right? And so you basically have a real sad situation, funny to watch, but sad nonetheless. You got two obese American blue collar adults, Roseanne and her husband Dan, and you got this dysfunctional family life with kids and whacked out sister and the kids that are have other the kids that have kids with apparently no man around, that kind of stuff. One of the girls is wanting to be like artificially not inseminated, but to basically be an egg donor and that kind of stuff. So there's a lot of strange things going on. And not only that, but then you have the grandson, Darlene. So for you guys who maybe didn't watch the show, or maybe don't remember the show, Darlene is the grumpy one from back in the day, the brown-haired, dark-haired girl. She's gay in real life. Sarah Gilbert, I think is her name. And her son on the show, so the grandson, just comes out obviously looking very gay or non-gender conforming, that type of stuff, right? And so there's a bit of a mystery around it. Is he gay? Is he not gay? What's the big deal? And stuff that I wouldn't have picked up on when I was a kid would have been Dan's just apathetic, whooped persona. I mean, the guy is basically just, living in this matriarchal family where he has almost zero input, and the only refuge he has is his garage and some beers at the end of the day. And he's a funny guy, lovable guy, and all that kind of stuff, which is what makes him endearing. But the guy can't stand up for himself for anything. So in the show, I think it was in the second episode, we've seen this kid come downstairs, getting ready to go to school. He's dressing in glitter and pink and all these other kind of stuff, and I think he's wearing makeup and some other stuff, right? And the mom, Darlene, says, it's not a big deal. He doesn't really want to be considered any particular gender and all this other kind of stuff. And, just kind of as a side note, I see a lot of single moms that really give into that kind of idea very, very easily because they want to love their children. Their children are everything to them, and they don't want the idea of their children going off and abandoning them. But anyhow, and I get this is a TV show. This is not real life. But they're bringing up real situations. So Dan says, hey, look, I don't want the kid to go out and get beat up. I want him to be safe. And then, of course, they all come around and say, well, it doesn't really matter what he ends up being. If he's gay, he's gay. If he's not gay, he's not gay. They kind of make a joke about they thought Darlene was gay, which is sort of funny because she's gay in real life. And I think most of the people thought she was gay on the show as well because she was very tomboyish. But the point is that Dan had a legitimate concern. Not only that, but the show obviously doesn't take it to a place where they're going to have a sit-down conversation about what it means to be a man. And so I think this is, really good food for thought for us, right? How should that kind of situation be handled? In one sense, I don't really care if my kid wears more pink than I did growing up. I mean, we all wear more colors than our ancestors did. And some of those colors, there's a squirrel on the road, don't die. Adventures in the truck. There's a dead deer and a buzzard eating that too. In the South. Anyhow, how should we handle stuff like that? I don't care if my kid wears more pink or more purple than I would have done. That doesn't bother me. But there's a defining quality about what it means to be masculine and be a man. And if you want to, if you can pull off a pink shirt, rock it, man. That's fine. But makeup, glitter, things like that, right? You should sit the kid down and say, hey, what are you searching for here? And it seems like in society that parents are supposed to be so hands-off on things. On the one hand, parents are held responsible for a lot of things that the kids do or don't do. But then when it comes to gender and things like what it means to be a man, what it means to be a woman, what we get from Hollywood is that that's not our business. It's not our business to tell our kids what to be when they grow up, right? To direct them into not their career, but to be a man or to be a woman. But it's absolutely our business because kids are stupid. I don't know if you guys have realized this. If you have kids, you have realized this. But they're fairly dumb, and that's because their brains are just mush. They haven't been developed yet. So parents, although we don't get everything right, obviously, we do have fully developed brains. And we have some information that they lack. And some of that information should include what it means to be a man, what it means to be a woman, and how to do those things. And I think that a lot of parents shy away from that, not only because they feel like it's taboo, like they're not supposed to talk about being a man or being a woman, but also because they really don't know why they are one or the other. They had the benefit of growing up in society when men did certain things and women did certain things. And so it was just sort of established ways of being. But they've lost the meaning behind it, and they don't really know how to explain what it means to be a man, what it means to be a woman. And then add on top of that, they've been told that it's not there is no such thing as a gender, which I find very funny, because on one hand, we're not supposed to recognize gender, right? Gender is just absolutely fluid. On the other hand, gender is something that we're supposed to absolutely bow down to, right? I mean, trans people want to be considered a man or a woman, not a trans man or a trans woman. And then we have Women's International Day and women's rights and those kinds of things, which are obviously gender specific. But I digress. Men, it is absolutely our job, and parents in general, it's absolutely our job to help our children understand what it means to be a man and be a woman. If they're confused about it, don't just allow them to go out there and just figure things out on their own. There's no parenting there. Figure it out for yourself. Become informed. What do men do? What do women do? What are the things that build us up, help us to feel like we're made to feel? And get rid of that confusion by setting the example for one, or pointing them to good examples if you're not one yourself. But don't just leave them out there, hoping that they'll discover themselves or something like that. Because here's the thing. Society is not interested in them becoming a man or a woman. Society is interested in selling them on things. And so if you're not stepping in and being the parent, if you're being the Dan, essentially, if you're not being the man that you ought to be in your family and setting that example, then somebody else is going to be pulling the strings. And there are a lot of influences out there over your children to try to get them to become not what they want to be. That's the ruse. Is to get them to become what society and what the media would want them to be. And that's most likely not going to reflect anything that you'd be proud of. All right, I got to get to work. Talk to you later.